Some women discover infidelity through forgotten messages on a phone, others by the strange scent of perfume on a shirt. Serena discovered it through a restaurant receipt tucked into her husband's suit pocket. A bill for two on a night he claimed he was working late. But what truly destroyed her wasn't just discovering that Victor had a mistress. It was discovering she was just 22 years old, a mere 5 years older than their daughter, Sophia. And in 3 days, he planned to parade her at the year's most important social event as his new business partner, while Serena was expected to stay home, feigning ignorance. He didn't know it yet, but Serena had decided to show up at that event too. And when she walked into that ballroom, nothing would ever be the same again. The morning sun of Washington, D.C. filtered through the silk curtains of the Sterling family mansion, casting a golden light that danced across the marble floors of the entryway. Serena was delicately arranging fresh flowers in a crystal vase, a ritual that had become her quiet way of finding peace amidst the whirlwind of her life. At 32, she possessed a quiet beauty that made people turn their heads. Long brown hair that fell in soft waves, intense green eyes that held a hint of a hypnotic glow, and a smile that, even when forced, could light up any room. "Mom, can I help?" Sophia's sweet voice echoed down the hall, and Serena's heart instantly warmed. Her 17-year-old daughter was her greatest joy, a smaller version of herself, with the same expressive green eyes and the same natural kindness that seemed to radiate from within. "Of course, my princess." Serena smiled genuinely for the first time that morning, crouching to meet her daughter at eye level. "How about you help me choose which flowers look best here?" Sophia nodded enthusiastically, her blonde curls bouncing as she carefully examined each blossom. It was in these moments that Serena found the strength to continue, to maintain the facade of a perfect marriage that had long since become a gilded cage. The sound of hurried footsteps on the marble stairs announced Victor's arrival. At 38, he was an undeniably impressive man, tall, with broad shoulders that perfectly filled his tailored Italian suits. His dark hair was always impeccably styled, and that confident smile had not only won Serena's heart years ago, but also the respect and admiration of the DC business world. Victor Sterling was the CEO of Sterling & Associates, one of the most successful business consulting firms in the country. His meteoric rise was legendary, transforming him from an ambitious young man to one of the most powerful and influential people in less than a decade. But with success came a transformation that Serena had watched with growing sadness. The gentle, attentive man she fell in love with had been replaced by someone cold, calculating, and, worst of all, disrespectful. "Morning," Victor muttered distractedly, barely glancing at his wife and daughter as he obsessively checked his phone. His messages seemed infinitely more interesting than the family he had promised to love and protect. "Dad!" Sophia ran to him, her arms outstretched for a hug that Victor returned mechanically, his eyes never leaving the screen. "Hello, sweetheart." "Dad's busy right now," he said, his voice carrying the concealed impatience that had become his trademark at home. Serena watched the scene with a heavy heart, seeing the bright enthusiasm in Sophia's eyes dim a little. It was always like this. Victor treated his own family as a social obligation, something to tolerate between important meetings and business commitments. "Victor," Serena tried to get his attention, her voice soft but firm. "It's Saturday. I thought we could spend the day together, maybe take Sophia to the park or—" "Impossible," he interrupted without looking up. "I need to review the presentation for the merger with the South American Hotel Group. If we land this contract, we'll expand across Latin America." He finally looked at her, but his gaze was cold, almost condescending. "Some things are more important than walks in the park, Serena. I hope you understand." The words cut deep, but Serena had learned to maintain her composure. Years of marriage to Victor had taught her that showing pain or frustration would only result in more coldness, more distance. "Of course," she replied, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Sophia and I will find something to do." Victor nodded distractedly, already typing a new message. Serena couldn't help but notice how quickly his fingers moved across the keypad, and a subtle smile as he typed made her stomach clench with a suspicion she had been trying to ignore for months. Victor's phone rang, and he answered immediately, his voice taking on that charming, engaging tone he reserved for people he considered important. "Mia, darling," he said, walking toward his office. "Of course we can move up our meeting." Serena felt her blood run cold. Mia. That name had appeared with increasing frequency in Victor's conversations lately, always described as a promising executive or a talented consultant. But there was something in the way Victor said the name, a subtle intimacy that sent all the alarms in Serena's mind blaring. "Mom, is Dad going to play with us?" Sophia asked, her small voice full of hope. Serena crouched again, taking her daughter's little hands in hers. "Not today, my love. But you know what we're going to do? We're going to have a special day, just for us. How about we go to the National Gallery and then get ice cream at that shop you love?" Sophia's eyes lit up again, and Serena felt grateful to have a daughter so resilient, so capable of finding joy even when she was disappointed. As they prepared to leave, Serena couldn't help but overhear fragments of Victor's phone conversation coming from his office. Words like lunch, a reservation for 2, and can't wait reached her, each one a small stab to her heart. Later, as they walked through the sunny streets of D.C., Sophia chattering animatedly about the paintings she wanted to see, Serena allowed herself to think about what her life had become. There was a time when she and Victor were inseparable, when he made her laugh until her stomach hurt, when his eyes shone with admiration every time he looked at her. She remembered how he used to surprise her with small romantic gestures, how he would leave loving notes in her bag, how he would hold her hand during movies. When had the change happened? When did the man who once said she was the most important woman in his life start treating her like expensive furniture? Something pretty to display at social events, but otherwise ignored in their day-to-day life. "Mom, are you sad?" Sophia's innocent question brought her back to the present. "No, sweetie." Serena smiled, kissing her daughter's head. "Mom is just thinking about how lucky she is to have such a special daughter like you." It was true, in part. Sophia was her light, her reason to keep fighting, to maintain her dignity even when she felt invisible in her own home. But underneath the surface, a storm of emotions was churning. Pain, anger, confusion, and something she wasn't yet ready to admit. The growing certainty that her marriage had become a sham. That night, after putting Sophia to bed, Serena found herself alone in the living room, flipping through a magazine. Victor still hadn't returned from his meeting, and she couldn't stop thinking about the name Mia and the way he had said it. The sound of the front door opening made her heart race. Victor walked in, looking pleased with himself, but his smile faded when he saw Serena waiting for him. "Still awake?" he asked, loosening his tie. "How was your meeting?" Serena asked, keeping her voice neutral. "Productive," he replied vaguely, pouring himself a whiskey at the bar. "The South American group is very interested. This could be our definitive entry into the market." Serena nodded, but couldn't help but ask, "And Mia? Was she also at the meeting?" Something in Victor's expression shifted, a flicker of something that could have been guilt or irritation, disappearing so quickly that she almost thought she imagined it. "She coordinated the market analysis for the project," he said, his voice slightly tense. "Why do you ask?" "Just curious," Serena lied. "You've been talking about her a lot lately." Victor looked at her with that expression she knew so well, as if she were a child asking impertinent questions. "Serena, you don't understand the complexities of the business world. Mia is a competent professional, nothing more." He finished his drink in one gulp. "I'm tired. Good night." And with that, he went upstairs, leaving Serena alone with her suspicions and her broken heart. That night, lying in bed next to a husband who was sleeping soundly, Serena stared at the ceiling and wondered when she had become a stranger in her own life. When had she stopped fighting for her marriage and started just surviving it? Outside, DC was still vibrant and alive, a city full of possibilities and dreams, but within these luxurious walls, Serena felt more alone than ever, not knowing that very soon her life would take a completely unexpected turn, and that the strong, determined woman she once was about to rise from the ashes of her failed marriage. The week followed its usual course in the Sterling mansion. Victor left earlier and came home later, always with elaborate excuses about market analyses and international expansion strategies that demanded his constant attention. Serena had become an expert at reading the signs, the phone he carried everywhere as if it were an extension of his own body, the secret smiles as he typed messages, the different perfume that sometimes clung to his clothes. It was a rainy Thursday when everything changed for good. Sophia had stayed at school for an extracurricular activity, and Serena decided to use the free afternoon to catch up on some housework. She was organizing the closet when she found one of Victor's suits that needed to go to the dry cleaner. As she checked the pockets, a habit developed over years of marriage, her fingers brushed against something that made her heart stop. A small folded piece of paper. With slightly trembling hands, she unfolded what was clearly a restaurant receipt, but not just any restaurant. It was the Capitol Plaza, one of the most exclusive and romantic establishments in DC. The bill was for 2 people and included a bottle of Dom Perignon and dishes Victor would never order for a business meeting. What made her completely collapse, however, was the date. 2 days prior, the exact day he had said he was at the office preparing reports for the investors and had come home after midnight, too exhausted to eat. Serena sank into a chair in the closet, the receipt still in her hands, feeling as if the world had tilted on its axis. All the suspicions, all the signs she had tried to rationalize or ignore, suddenly crystallized into an undeniable, painful truth. The sound of the phone ringing brought her back to reality. It was Cole Harris, Victor's business partner, and, ironically, one of the only true friends she still had. "Serena, dear," his warm, concerned voice came through the line. "How are you?" Cole was everything Victor had stopped being. Gentle, attentive, a man of solid principles who treated people with genuine respect. At 40, he possessed a natural elegance that didn't depend on expensive clothes or designer accessories. The gray at his temples and the laugh lines around his eyes spoke of a man who had lived with purpose and integrity. "Cole, Serena faltered, fighting back the tears that threatened to overflow. "Do you have a few minutes? I need to talk to someone." "Always," he replied immediately. "I'm on my way." 40 minutes later, Serena was in the living room, serving coffee to Cole, trying to find the words to express the storm of emotions raging in her heart. He watched her with his compassionate brown eyes, patiently waiting for her to find the courage to speak. "Cole," she began, her voice barely a whisper. Do you know anything about Victor? Anything I should know?" The silence that followed was a sufficient answer. She saw the pain reflected in Cole's face, the internal struggle between loyalty to his partner and genuine concern for her. "Serena," he finally said, his voice heavy with sorrow. "How long have we been friends?" "More than 10 years," she replied. since before my marriage." "Then you know I would never lie to you." Cole leaned forward, his hands clasped. "But you also know this is an impossible position for me." Serena showed him the restaurant receipt. "I found this today." Cole looked at the paper and closed his eyes as if in physical pain. When he opened them again, there was a sad determination in them. "Her name is Mia Santiago," he said, each word coming out with difficulty. "She's 22 years old, a marketing consultant. She's been working with us for about 6 months." Serena felt as if she had been punched in the stomach. Hearing the confirmation of her worst suspicions was even more painful than she had imagined. "How long has it been going on?" she asked, her voice almost inaudible. "I'd say it started 5 months ago, maybe a little longer." Cole sighed deeply. "Serena, I tried to talk to Victor several times. I tried to make him see the craziness of what he was doing, what he was risking, his family, his reputation, everything. And what did he say? That I was old-fashioned, that I didn't understand the complexities of modern life." The bitterness in Cole's voice was palpable. "He said you were content being just a trophy wife, that Mia challenged him intellectually." The words cut deeper, more painful coming through Cole, whom she knew was trying to soften the blow. "Trophy wife," she repeated, tasting the words like poison. "He's wrong, Serena," Cole said vehemently. "Completely wrong. You are one of the most intelligent and talented women I know. The fact that you chose to dedicate yourself to your family doesn't lessen your value in any way." Serena got up and walked to the window, looking out at the perfectly manicured garden she herself had planned and overseen. Everything in her life looked perfectly arranged on the outside, but inside, it was crumbling. 5 months, she murmured. 5 months is exactly how long he's been telling me he's been working late. The cruel irony of the situation was not lost on her. While she had been building a life, creating a home, being the perfect wife he seemed to want, Victor had been building a parallel lie, a secret life that completely excluded everything they had promised each other. "Serena," Cole came up to her, his voice gentle but firm. "You need to know one more thing." She turned, seeing something in his eyes that made her fear what would come next. "There's a gala event next week, the annual party for the DC Business Association at the Capitol Plaza. Victor is going to be there, and..." He hesitated, clearly struggling with the words. "Mia will be there too, as his official date." Serena's world seemed to stop completely. She leaned against the window ledge, feeling her legs go weak. "Official date?" she repeated, her voice coming out as a strangled whisper. "He told the business media that she's his new strategic partner, and she's being officially introduced to the DC Business Society at this event." Cole clenched his fists, his own rage showing through. "Serena, forgive me for having to be the one to tell you this, but you deserve to know." "And me?" she asked, still processing the magnitude of the betrayal. "What excuse did he give for my absence?" "He said you were handling personal family matters." Cole's words cut like blades. "That you prefer to keep your private life out of the business spotlight." Serena closed her eyes, feeling a toxic mix of humiliation, rage, and a pain so deep it felt physical. Victor wasn't just having an affair. He was actively replacing her, erasing her existence from his public life. "For how much longer, Cole?" she asked, opening her eyes to meet his. "How much longer do you think he plans to keep up this charade?" "Honestly, I think he's planning to file for divorce after the South American deal goes through. Mia, she's not just a mistress, Serena. She's ambitious, calculating. I think she sees Victor as a stepping stone to building her own empire." The revelation was like the final blow. Serena sank heavily into the armchair, processing not only the end of her marriage, but the cruel, public way it was being executed. He's going to leave me with nothing, she murmured, more to herself than to Cole. He's going to paint me as the inadequate wife, the woman who couldn't keep up with his professional growth. Not if he doesn't have a choice, Cole said, a new determination surfacing in his voice. Serena, you are not the same vulnerable woman who married Victor 7 years ago. You've grown, you've evolved, you've become a quiet but powerful force. It's time to show it. She looked at him, confused. What do you mean? You're going to that gala event. Cole, I can't. You can, and you will, he interrupted gently but firmly. Not as the humiliated wife hiding at home, but as the strong, elegant woman you are. Let Victor and his mistress know that you won't disappear quietly. And how do you suggest I do that? Serena's voice carried a tone of desperation. I don't even have an invitation. Cole smiled for the first time since he arrived. You're going as my date. I'm a partner in the firm. I have the right to bring whomever I choose. And, he paused meaningfully, I have some information about Victor's questionable business practices that might prove enlightening. Cole, I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm offering, he said, walking over to her. Serena, Victor isn't just betraying you. He's also betraying the ethical principles of our company. There are irregular contracts, undeclared commissions, a series of activities that could destroy our reputation if they came to light. Are you talking about blackmail? I'm talking about justice, Cole corrected, and about protecting you and Sophia from what's to come. That night after Cole left, Serena found herself in Sophia's room, watching her daughter sleep peacefully. The innocence on the girl's face was a brutal contrast to the storm of emotions raging in her mother's heart. Mom's going to fight for us, my princess, she whispered, gently kissing her daughter's forehead. I won't let him treat us like we're disposable. When Victor came home that night, later than ever, with Mia's perfume still clinging to his skin, he found Serena waiting for him in the living room. But there was something different about her, something he couldn't immediately identify. Still awake? He asked as usual. Victor, she said, her voice surprisingly calm and controlled. We need to talk. He looked at her with suspicion, noticing the change in her posture, the way she held her shoulders high, her chin lifted. About what? About the gala event next week. Serena rose gracefully, walking toward him. I heard you're bringing a special guest. Victor's face paled slightly, but he quickly composed himself. Serena, I can explain. You don't need to, she interrupted, her voice maintaining that unnerving calm. In fact, I think it will be a very revealing night for everyone involved. What do you mean by that? Serena smiled, not the forced, submissive smile that had become her trademark, but something new, something that held a dangerous promise. You'll find out at the right time, Victor. Good night. And with that, she went upstairs, leaving him alone with his guilt and a growing sense that he had severely underestimated the woman he had married. The transformation. The days leading up to the gala event passed in a whirlwind of preparation and transformation for Serena. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to spend money on herself, not on the quick, practical purchases she had become accustomed to, but on a true investment in her own image and confidence. On Monday morning, while Victor was rushing out to another important meeting, Serena called Isabel Monroe, a former college friend who had become one of DC's most sought-after stylists. Serena Sterling? Isabel's voice was full of genuine surprise and delight. It's been so long. I heard you married that famous CEO. How's the high society life? Complicated, Serena replied honestly. Isabel, I need your help. I need a dress for the Business Association Gala, and I need to look unforgettable. There was a pause on the other end of the line, and Serena could almost hear the gears of Isabel's creative mind turning. What kind of unforgettable are we talking about here, honey? The kind that stops traffic, Or the kind that destroys relationships? The second one, Serena said without hesitation. Perfect. I'll be at your house in an hour, with some options that will make you feel like the goddess you always were. When Isabel arrived, accompanied by 3 assistants carrying enormous bags of clothes and accessories, Serena felt as if she were about to undergo a complete metamorphosis. Darling, Isabel said, studying Serena with professional eyes. You're thinner, and there's a tension in your shoulders that wasn't there in college. But your eyes have a fire I've never seen before. That's good. Very good. The next 3 hours were a transformative experience. Isabel had brought 5 dresses, each more stunning than the last. There was a blood-red one that hugged every curve provocatively, a navy blue one with crystal details that radiated royal elegance, and a structured black one that was simultaneously sophisticated and devastating. But it was the 5th dress that made Serena stop breathing. It was a deep emerald green, the same color as her eyes, with a cut that perfectly blended modernity and classicism. The fabric flowed over her body like water, accentuating her silhouette without being vulgar, and the deep cut in the back was a work of seductive art. This one, she said simply, looking in the mirror and seeing not the neglected wife she had become, but the powerful woman who had always been there beneath the layers of submission and self-denial. I knew you'd choose this one, Isabel smiled with satisfaction. It's the hardest to wear. It requires absolute confidence. But on you, it's going to be devastating. They spent the rest of the afternoon choosing shoes, jewelry, and discussing hair and makeup options. Isabel insisted on scheduling Serena with her own glam squad, people who worked with international celebrities and models. Serena, Isabel said as they organized everything, can I ask what's really going on? You seem like a woman on a mission. Serena considered for a moment whether she should share the sordid details of her situation, but something in Isabel's compassionate expression made her decide on honesty. My husband has been having an affair for 5 months. He's bringing his mistress to the gala as his official business partner, while I'm supposed to stay home like an obedient wife, pretending I don't know anything. Isabel's eyes narrowed dangerously. What kind of man does that to a woman like you? The kind who forgot he married a woman, not a decorative accessory. Serena's voice carried a cold determination, but he's going to remember it in a very public and very memorable way. Good. Isabel smiled with a malice that reminded Serena why they had been close friends in college. In that case, we're going to make sure you are absolutely unforgettable. Meanwhile, at the Sterling and Associates office, Victor was having his own tense series of conversations. Cole had requested a private meeting, and Victor could feel his partner's disapproval radiating from him like heat waves. Victor, we need to talk about Mia, Cole said directly, closing the office door. Cole, we've already discussed this. She's a competent professional and she's taking unauthorized commissions from our South American clients, Cole interrupted. I found discrepancies in the contracts she drew up, commissions that are going directly into a personal account of hers. Victor felt his blood run cold. What are you talking about? Cole tossed a thick folder onto the table. 3 different contracts, all with clauses she inserted without our authorization. We're talking about more than $250,000 in irregular commissions. This must be some kind of misunderstanding. Victor, Cole said, his voice filled with pity and frustration. You're being used. Mia isn't interested in you. She's interested in your position, your access to clients, your signature on contracts. You're exaggerating because you never liked her. I'm trying to save our company and your reputation, Cole retorted. And by the way, maybe save your marriage too. Victor stood abruptly, walking to the window that overlooked the DC financial district. The city spread out before him, a symbol of everything he had conquered, everything he had built. The idea that he could lose it all because of a woman who might not even truly love him was unbearable. "What do you want me to do?" he finally asked, his voice defeated. "End it with her publicly. At the gala event, make it clear that there was a misunderstanding about her status at the company. Go back home to your wife and try to rebuild what can still be saved." "And if I don't do that?" Cole sighed deeply. "Then I will be forced to present this evidence to the association's board of directors. Victor, our company's reputation is at stake. I can't let this continue." That night, Victor came home earlier than usual, finding Serena in the living room, reading a book. There was something different about her, a serenity he hadn't seen in years, as if she had made a major decision. "Serena," he began, sitting next to her on the sofa. "Can we talk?" She marked her page and looked at him, her green eyes calm but alert. "Sure, about the gala event." He hesitated, searching for the right words. "Maybe you should come with me after all, as my wife." Serena studied him for a long moment, and Victor felt uncomfortable under her piercing gaze. "Victor, is there something you'd like to tell me?" "What are you talking about?" "About Mia, about what's really going on between you two." Victor felt his heart race. How did she know? What did she know? "Serena, you don't need to explain now," she said, rising gracefully. "As you said, some revelations are best made at the right time. I'll see you at the gala, Victor. It's going to be a very interesting night." And for the second time that week, she left him alone with his lies and a growing sense that he had completely lost control of the situation. The revelation, the day of the event, Serena awoke with a supernatural calm. She had slept deeply for the first time in months and felt like a warrior preparing for the most important battle of her life. Sophia was spending the day at her grandmother's, protected from what was about to happen. Serena had explained to her daughter that Mom had a very important party to go to, and that they would have a special day together over the weekend to make up for it. At 3:00 p.m., Isabel's team arrived to begin the final transformation. Over the next 4 hours, Serena was styled, polished, and transformed, not just into a more glamorous version of herself, but into the powerful woman who had slept inside her for years. Her hair was styled in timeless Hollywood waves. The makeup dramatically but elegantly enhanced her green eyes, with a red lipstick that promised to leave its mark on everything it touched. The emerald dress fit her body like a second skin, and the high heels made her feel like an Amazon warrior ready for battle. When she looked in the mirror one last time before leaving, Serena saw not the neglected, submissive wife she had become, but the strong, determined woman she had always been, who was about to reclaim her place in the world. The Capitol Plaza Hotel was resplendent on that October night. The golden lights of the neoclassical facade created a majestic glow that reflected in the luxury cars arriving in a steady stream. The annual event for the DC Business Association was always the most prestigious on the city's social and business calendar, bringing together the elite of business, influential politicians, and media personalities. Victor arrived at 8:00 p.m., impeccably dressed in a custom Armani tuxedo, with Mia on his arm. She was wearing a golden dress that glittered under the lights, her blonde hair perfectly arranged in a sophisticated chignon. At 22, Mia Santiago possessed a calculated beauty. Every gesture, every smile, every movement seemed carefully planned for maximum impact. "You're nervous," she observed as they walked down the red carpet, greeting photographers and journalists. "Just focused," Victor replied, but his hand squeezing her arm betrayed his tension. "Remember, you're my new strategic partner, responsible for international expansion. Nothing more, nothing less. Mia smiled, but there was something sharp in her eyes. Of course, darling. Whatever you say. The grand ballroom was decorated with refined elegance. Monumental arrangements of white and gold flowers, crystal chandeliers that created a dazzling light show, and tables strategically placed to encourage circulation and business conversations. Victor and Mia were immediately surrounded by other executives, journalists, and important personalities. Victor presented Mia with his well-rehearsed speech about her professional competence and strategic vision, but he couldn't help but notice the speculative glances they exchanged. The DC high society was small, and everyone knew Victor was married. Victor, Edward Sunderland, the president of the association, approached with a political smile. What a pleasure to see you here, and this must be the famous Mia we've heard so much about. Edward, always a pleasure. Victor extended his hand. Yes, Mia Santiago, our new director of international expansion. Fascinating, Edward said, but his eyes carried a curiosity that went beyond the professional. And your wife, Victor? It's been so long since we've seen her at a public event. Victor felt a knot form in his stomach. Serena prefers to handle family matters. You know how she is. Of course, Edward nodded, but there was a strangeness in his tone that made Victor uncomfortable. Across the ballroom, near the main entrance, Cole Harris checked his watch for the 10th time in 5 minutes. It was 8:40, and Serena still hadn't arrived. He was beginning to wonder if she had changed her mind, if the courage she had shown all week had finally abandoned her. It was then that the conversations in the ballroom gradually began to die down, like ripples spreading across a lake. Heads turned toward the entrance, whispers began to circulate, and even the orchestra seemed to play more softly, as if instinctively recognizing that something extraordinary was about to happen. Serena Sterling had arrived. She appeared at the top of the marble staircase that descended to the main hall, and for a moment that seemed eternal, time simply stopped. The emerald dress flowed around her body like liquid water, catching and reflecting the lights of the chandeliers in a nearly magical way. Her posture was that of a queen, shoulders back, chin high, and those green eyes that had always been her trademark now shone with an intensity that seemed to illuminate the entire room. She descended the steps slowly, each movement calculated for maximum impact. There was no rush, no anxiety, just an absolute confidence that radiated from her like a palpable aura. The silence in the room was almost deafening. 200 people, CEOs, politicians, socialites, journalists, all stopped what they were doing to watch this dazzling woman who had appeared like a vision. My God, someone whispered near the entrance. Who is she? It's Victor Sterling's wife, came the whispered reply. Serena Sterling. It's been years since we've seen her in public. Victor, who was in the center of the room talking with a group of investors, felt a shiver run down his spine before he turned around. There was something in the quality of the silence, in the way the conversations had ceased, that set off all his survival alarms. When he finally turned and saw her, his face paled visibly. This was not the submissive, neglected Serena he had left at home for months. This was a completely transformed woman, a force of nature in human form, and she was walking directly toward him. Mia followed Victor's gaze and felt her own stomach clench. She had seen photos of Serena, old social event photos, some casual images Victor had on his phone. But nothing, absolutely nothing, had prepared her for the magnetic presence of the woman who now completely dominated everyone's attention in the ballroom. Victor, Mia whispered, her voice filled with an insecurity she rarely showed. It's her, isn't it? Victor couldn't answer. He was completely mesmerized by the sight of his wife, a wife he had neglected, underestimated, and betrayed, walking toward him with the confidence of a warrior goddess. Serena reached them, and the circle of executives surrounding them automatically opened to let her through, as if instinctively recognizing they were in the presence of someone extraordinary. "Victor," she said, her voice soft, but loaded with an authority that made everyone present fall completely silent. "What a surprise to find you here." She then turned to Mia, studying her with a gaze that was both evaluative and completely impassive. "And you must be Mia Santiago. I've heard so much about you." Mia tried to smile, tried to find that calculated confidence that had always served her well. But something in Serena's gaze made her feel like a child being evaluated by an adult. Yes, I'm Mia," she managed to say. "I'm working with Victor on international expansion." "How interesting," Serena said, her tone remaining perfectly cordial. International expansion. Victor always had such a passion for new territories. The double meaning was not lost on anyone in the circle watching them. Several executives exchanged meaningful glances, and more than one journalist discreetly activated their phone's voice recorder. "Serena." Victor finally found his voice, although it came out more hoarse than he intended. "What are you doing here?" She smiled then, not the submissive, conciliatory smile he knew, but something new, something that held a dangerous promise. "I'm here as Cole's guest, naturally. You don't mind, I hope. After all, I am part of the Sterling family, too." It was then that Cole appeared at her side, offering his arm chivalrously. He was elegantly dressed, but it was the protective way he positioned himself next to Serena that made Victor feel a pang of something that might have been jealousy. "Good evening, Victor," Cole said, his voice maintaining professional cordiality, but his eyes holding a coldness Victor had never seen before. "Mia, Cole," Victor replied, his mind working furiously to understand the situation's dynamic. "I didn't know you and Serena." "We're old friends," Serena answered before Cole could speak. "It's comforting to have true friends, isn't it? People you can completely trust." The word trust dropped like a bomb in the middle of the conversation. Victor felt the blood drain from his face, and Mia instinctively took a step closer to him, as if seeking protection. "Well," Edward Sunderland appeared again, clearly sensing the tension in the air, but determined to maintain the event's cordiality. "How wonderful to have the whole Sterling family here tonight. Serena, you look absolutely stunning." "Thank you, Edward." Serena smiled warmly at him. "It's good to be back." "Back," Victor repeated involuntarily. "To social events, darling," Serena said, looking him directly in the eyes. "I realized I was missing out on a lot by staying home. So many interesting conversations, so many revelations." The orchestra began to play a classical waltz, and the ballroom gradually resumed its activities, although many eyes were still discreetly focused on the drama unfolding in the center of the floor. "Serena," Cole extended his hand to her. "Would you like to dance?" "I'd love to," she replied, accepting his hand without even glancing at Victor. As they headed to the dance floor, Victor stood frozen, watching his wife, a wife he suddenly realized he may have never truly known, gracefully dancing in his partner's arms. Her every movement was elegant, confident, magnetically attractive. It was impossible not to watch her, impossible not to be drawn to her transformed presence. "Victor," Mia whispered at his side, her voice laced with insecurity. "Maybe we should go." But Victor couldn't move. He was completely captivated by the woman on the dance floor, a woman he had taken for granted for years, a woman who was now clearly showing him and everyone else exactly what he had lost, and the night was just beginning. The waltz came to an end, but Serena and Cole remained on the dance floor for a few more moments, conversing in whispers that seemed intimate and conspiratorial. Victor watched their every gesture, every smile, every moment of closeness between them, with an intensity that bordered on obsession. Are you okay? Cole asked softly, his hand still gently placed on her waist. Better than I've been in years, Serena replied, and for the first time in months, she truly meant it. Thank you for giving me the courage to be here. The courage was always there, Serena. You just let it sleep for a while. When they returned to the social area, they found Victor alone. Mia had disappeared, likely to the ladies' room, trying to recompose herself and plan her next move. Victor? Serena approached him with that same unnerving calm. Can we talk in private? Victor nodded, unable to refuse. There was something about her presence that completely magnetized him. They headed to one of the hotel's side terraces, a more private space with a view of DC's illuminated gardens. Once alone, the veneer of social cordiality finally began to crack. What are you doing, Serena? Victor asked, his voice filled with frustration and confusion. I'm being myself, she replied simply. Something I forgot how to do in the last few years. You know what I mean. This transformation, showing up here with Cole, publicly humiliating me. Humiliating you? Serena interrupted, her green eyes shining dangerously. Victor, you brought your mistress to a public event and introduced her as your partner. Who is humiliating whom? Victor paled. How do you? Oh, how I know. Serena took a step closer, and Victor could smell her perfume. Not the soft, familiar scent she had always worn, but something new. More intense, more confident. I know about the Capitol Plaza. I know about the 5 months of lies. I know about your plans to publicly discard me while you elevate Mia to the status of your new companion. Serena, I can explain. You don't need to, she said, surprisingly calm. In fact, I should thank you. Thank me? Victor was completely lost. Yes, you did me a huge favor by showing me who you really are. Imagine if I had discovered this 10 years from now, after wasting even more of my life trying to be the perfect wife for a man who didn't deserve a single day of my dedication. The words cut Victor more deeply than he ever imagined words could, because somewhere in the back of his mind, he knew she was right. What about Sophia? He asked, trying to regain some control of the situation. Sophia will be fine, Serena replied. She has a mother who loves her unconditionally and who will fight for her. As for her father, she paused meaningfully. Well, that will depend on your decisions from now on. What do you mean? I mean you have 2 options, Victor. You can do this civilly, divide our assets fairly, establish a custody agreement that prioritizes Sophia's well-being, and maintain a minimum of dignity in the process. Or, Serena smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Or, Cole can decide to share some interesting information with the association's board of directors about certain financial irregularities involving South American contracts. Victor felt as if he had been punched in the stomach. You wouldn't do that, wouldn't I? Serena's eyes narrowed. Victor, you spent the last 5 months lying to me, betraying me, humiliating me, and planning to discard me like I was an old piece of furniture. What exactly makes you think I still deserve your protection? Just then, Mia appeared at the entrance to the terrace, having clearly been looking for Victor. She had touched up her makeup and recomposed her posture, but there was still a visible tension in her shoulders. Victor, darling, she said, trying to sound casual. People are asking for you. There are some investors who would like... Mia. Serena turned to her with a smile that was pure elegance and pure poison. How good of you to be here. I was just talking to Victor about decisions and consequences. Mia looked nervously between Victor and Serena, clearly sensing the tension in the air, but not fully understanding its origin. You know, Serena continued, walking slowly around Mia like a predator studying its prey. I heard you're very talented at expanding territories, Cole told me some fascinating things about your creativity with international contracts. Mia's face instantly lost color. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm sure you don't, Serena said softly. But I'm sure the U.S. Fiscal Audit Department would be very interested in learning more about those creative commissions that appeared in private accounts. Victor, Mia turned to him, panic beginning to show in her voice. What is she talking about? Victor looked between the two women. His wife, transformed into an unstoppable force, and his mistress, suddenly looking very young and very vulnerable. For the first time in months, he began to see the situation with clarity. Mia was not the sophisticated, independent woman he had thought. She was an opportunist who had seen in him an opportunity for social and financial ascension. And Serena was everything he had forgotten she could be. Intelligent, strong, magnificent. Mia, he finally said, his voice tired. I think you should leave. What? She looked at him as if he had lost his mind. Victor, you can't be serious. After everything what? Serena interrupted softly. After you used my family to advance your career? After you stole from the company my husband built? After you tried to destroy a marriage for your own benefit? I love Victor, Mia exploded, finally showing real emotion. No, Serena said with unshakable certainty. You love what Victor represents. Power, money, status. But Victor, the man? I doubt you even know him. Mia looked at Victor, expecting him to defend her, to deny the accusations. But he remained silent, and in that silence, she saw the truth. You're going to regret this, she said finally, her mask of sophistication completely falling away. You're both going to regret this. Maybe, Serena said calmly, but at least we'll regret it with dignity. Mia left the terrace with quick, furious steps, leaving Victor and Serena alone again. The silence stretched between them, laden with 7 years of marriage, months of betrayal, and the inevitable reality of what was to come. So now what? Victor asked finally. Now you choose, Serena replied. Dignity or destruction, cooperation or war, respect or public humiliation. Victor looked at the woman in front of him, his wife, the mother of his daughter, the woman he had sworn to love and protect, and saw not only what he had lost, but what he had never truly appreciated. Serena, he said, his voice breaking slightly. No, she interrupted gently. Not now, Victor. Some words lose their power when they are said too late. You made your choice 5 months ago. Now, I'm making mine. She turned to leave, but stopped at the entrance to the terrace. Oh, and Victor, the next time you choose a woman, make sure she loves you for the man you are, not for what you have. You deserve it, and so does she. And with those words, Serena Sterling walked off the terrace and out of Victor's life forever, leaving him alone with his decisions and their consequences. 6 months later, the spring sun of London filtered through the windows of an elegant apartment in Chelsea, creating golden patterns on the polished hardwood floors. Serena was in the kitchen, preparing breakfast while watching Sophia play in the small backyard garden. The girl had adapted surprisingly well to the move to London, especially after starting an international school where she made friends from various nationalities. Mom! Sophia shouted from the garden, mixing English and French. Can I plant these flowers here? Of course, my princess, Serena replied, smiling as she watched her daughter embrace her new life. But be careful not to get your dress dirty before the ceremony. Today was a special day. After a divorce that had been surprisingly civil, Victor had chosen cooperation instead of war, Serena was finally ready to close one chapter and open a completely new one in her life. The divorce had been resolved exactly as she had foreseen. Confronted with the evidence of Mia's irregularities and the threat of public scandal, Victor had chosen to resolve everything discreetly. Serena received half of the couple's assets, a generous amount of child support, and shared custody of Sophia, although the girl spent most of her time with her mother in London. Mia had disappeared from their lives as quickly as she had appeared. The last news Serena had of her was that she was working for a much smaller firm, her reputation in the U.S. market definitively ruined. Victor, for his part, had spent the last few months trying to rebuild his life and his company. He had reached out to Serena several times, trying to apologize, trying to explain, trying to win back what he had lost. But Serena had been clear. Some betrayals cut too deep to allow for healing. The sound of the doorbell brought her back to the present. Through the intercom, she heard Cole's familiar, warm voice. "Did my carriage arrive, Princess?" he asked playfully. Serena smiled, feeling that sense of peace and contentment that had become a constant in her life in recent months. "Coming, Prince Charming." Cole had moved to London 3 months after she did. He had sold his share of the company to Victor and decided to start his own consulting firm, specializing in ethical and sustainable business. His decision to leave DC had been both professional and personal. He couldn't work with Victor anymore after everything that had happened, and he had discovered he couldn't live away from Serena. Their relationship had blossomed naturally, without haste or drama, built on a solid foundation of friendship, mutual respect, and shared values. Cole had courted her like a gentleman from a bygone era. Flowers, elegant dinners, long conversations about art and literature, romantic walks in London's parks. When he finally kissed her, 3 months after arriving in London, Serena had felt something she had never experienced before. Not the fiery, often tumultuous passion she had felt for Victor, but something deeper, more stable, more real. It was love in its purest sense. Admiration, companionship, gentle desire, and the absolute certainty that this person was someone she could trust with her life and her daughters. "Mom!" Sophia ran inside the house when she saw Cole coming up the stairs. "Cole, you brought my surprise." Cole smiled, crouching to meet the girl at her height. At 40, he had discovered that being a stepfather was one of the most rewarding experiences of his life. Sophia had accepted him immediately, perhaps because he treated her with the respect and attention she deserved, something she had not always received from her own father. "Of course I did," he said, taking a small wrapped box from his pocket. "A special bracelet for the most beautiful maid of honor in London." Sophia opened the box and shrieked with delight at the sight of a delicate silver bracelet with small engraved hearts. "Thank you, Cole. Now we're all matching." Serena looked at the two of them, her radiant daughter, and the man who had chosen not only to be her partner, but also a true father to Sophia, and felt her heart overflow with gratitude. "Are you ready, my love?" Cole asked, coming to her side and gently kissing her forehead. Serena wore a simple but elegant cream silk dress with a delicate tiara of natural flowers in her hair. It wasn't a traditional wedding dress. They had decided on a small, intimate ceremony, just the two of them, Sophia, and a few close loved ones. "More than ready," she replied, taking the bouquet of white and pink peonies he had brought. The ceremony would be in a small chapel in Chelsea, followed by a lunch in the garden of a charming restaurant Cole had discovered. They had invited only 10 people, some friends Serena had made in London, Cole's family, and, surprisingly, Victor. The decision to invite Victor had been difficult, but both Serena and Cole felt it was important. Not for nostalgia or dramatic forgiveness, but because Sophia deserved to have her father present at such an important moment. and because they all needed to definitively close the previous chapter of their lives. Victor had accepted the invitation with a mix of melancholy and genuine happiness for her. In recent months, he had been on a difficult journey of self-discovery, working with a therapist to understand how he had become the man who betrayed the woman he loved. An hour later, in the small chapel bathed in the morning's golden light, Serena and Cole exchanged simple but profound vows. There was no drama, no tears of regret or desperate passion, just a deep sense of being exactly where they were supposed to be, with exactly the right person. I promise to love you not just on the easy days, but especially on the difficult ones, Cole said, holding her hands and looking directly into her eyes. I promise to be your true partner, your most loyal friend, and the man you deserve. I promise to trust you completely, Serena replied, her voice clear and sure. I promise to build a life with you based on honesty, respect, and true love, and I promise to never again lose myself in a relationship. I will always remain myself, the strong woman you chose to love. When they kissed to seal their vows, Sophia applauded enthusiastically, and the few guests present smiled with tears in their eyes. Victor, sitting discreetly at the back of the chapel, watched the scene with complex emotions. There was pain, yes, the pain of seeing the woman he had loved find with another man the happiness he had never known how to give her. But there was also a strange peace, a sense that maybe, finally, everyone was where they were meant to be. After the ceremony, during the lunch in the restaurant's fragrant garden, Victor approached Serena while Cole was playing with Sophia near the fountain. "Serena," he said softly, "you look radiant." "I feel radiant," she replied honestly. "For the first time in a long time, I feel whole." "He makes you happy?" "Yes," she smiled. "But more importantly, he allows me to make myself happy. There's a difference." Victor nodded, understanding perfectly what she meant. I hope you can forgive me someday." Serena studied him for a long moment. "Victor, I already have. Not for what you did to me, but for what you did to us. I forgave you because carrying anger would be like carrying poison, and my new life is too sweet to be contaminated by bitterness. Thank you," he said simply. "But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting," she continued gently, "and it doesn't mean we can go back. Some bridges, once burned, cannot be rebuilt. We can only learn from the ashes." "I understand," Victor said, "and I want you to know that I'm going to be a better father to Sophia. She deserves it." "She does," Serena agreed, "and you deserve the opportunity to be that better father." As the sun began to set over London, painting the sky with golden and pink hues, Serena found herself on the terrace of her apartment, still in her cream wedding dress, watching Cole and Sophia plant flowers in the small garden. She thought about the journey that had led her to this moment, the pain of betrayal, the discovery of her own strength, the courage to start over, and, finally, the true love she had found not only in Cole, but in herself. Her life in D.C. seemed to belong to another person, a younger, more naive version of herself, who had believed that love meant sacrificing her identity for another person. She now knew that true love meant growing alongside someone, being supported to become the best version of yourself. "Mrs. Harris," Cole called from the garden, using her new name with a playful smile. "Want to help us plant the last of the flowers?" "Coming, Mr. Harris," she replied, going down to join her new family. As they planted the small flowers that would bloom the following spring, Serena knew with absolute certainty that she had made the right decisions. Her life had been replanted in more fertile soil, with people who watered her with true love and genuine respect. And for the first time in years, When she looked toward the future, she saw not just possibilities, but brilliant probabilities. A life built on a solid foundation, with a man who valued her, a daughter who was growing up strong and confident, and a version of herself she promised never to abandon again. The story of Serena Sterling had ended that night at the Gala event in D.C. The story of Serena Harris was just beginning, under the infinite sky of London, planting the seeds of a future that promised to be as beautiful as she always deserved. Every day, women face a choice. Will we be defined by the love we receive from others, or by the love we cultivate for ourselves? The true power of Serena's story isn't that she got revenge, but that she found her voice and her authentic self. She learned that a man's love should be a supplement to a woman's life, not the foundation of it. If this story resonated with you, share it with a woman who needs to be reminded of her own strength. Hit the like button if you believe all women deserve to be the queens of their own lives, and subscribe to the channel for more stories of women who dared to shine.